Unspoken, Book 1 of the Obsidian Reach by Hope Happies. Chapter 4, The Serpent's Whisper. Her mother was awake. It was the first thing Elena registered when she walked into the room at Ethelgard. Not the ventilator, not the cardiac monitor, not the small bouquet of lilies one of the nurses had put on the windowsill, the eyes. Maya's eyes were open and turned toward the door. "You're here late," Maya said. Her voice was thinner than it had been a month ago. She was looking at Elena in the particular way she had always looked at Elena when Elena came home past her curfew at 17, which was the same way she had looked at Elena when Elena had come home past her curfew at 32. Mild, patient, not fooled. "I had a meeting," Elena said. "I can see what kind of meeting." She was looking at the red dress. Elena had put the black coat on over it, but the dress was still visible at the collar and the diamonds were still in Elena's bag. "Come here," Maya said. "Let me see." Elena came and sat on the edge of the bed. She opened the coat. She did not take out the diamonds. Her mother looked at the dress for a long, slow moment, and then she reached up and took Elena's wrist and held it without saying anything, and Elena could feel the way the bones of her mother's hand had become lighter since the last time she had held them. "Red's not your usual," Maya said. "No." "You wore it anyway." "Yes." "On a day like today, I think it suits you." She let Elena's wrist go. "You eat?" "Not yet." "Eat something. You're going to need it." She said it the way she had always said it. It was a fact about the world, not a piece of advice. Maya closed her eyes. Her breathing settled back into the slow rhythm it had been in before she had opened her eyes. Elena sat holding her mother's hand for several minutes. She was aware that she was being watched. Julian had made no secret of the Thorn security presence on the wing, and she was aware that the Ethelgard board still answered, on certain specific matters, to Marcus Sterling. She was aware of both of these things in the way she was aware of weather. They were the conditions she was going to have to operate in. "I have to go." I love you." "I know." "Go." She kissed her mother's forehead, which was cool, and she stood, and she turned to the door, and Marcus Sterling was standing in it. He had changed out of the gold-toned suit. He was wearing charcoal now, unshowy. The kind of suit he wore when he wanted to be underestimated. He was leaning lightly on a silver-headed cane he did not need, and he did not come into the room. He stayed in the doorway. "5 minutes, Elena." "No?" "4, then." She looked back at Maya. Maya's eyes were closed. She was either asleep or choosing to be. Elena stepped into the hall and shut the door behind her. The corridor was empty. The Ethelgard corridors were always empty at this hour. It was part of what the fees purchased. Marcus walked a few paces down the hall to where a small window overlooked the cliff, and she followed because walking beside him was better than talking in front of her mother's door. "I've been removed from operational oversight," he said. "I know I did it." "Don't get vain. The board was going to do it anyway. You accelerated the timetable." He did not look at her. He looked out at the fog on the water. "You were going to strike when you had clean air. You took Thorn's cover because it was available. That was well done. I have no complaint about the execution." "I don't need your professional notes, Marcus." "You're going to need something." He turned and faced her. In this light and at this angle, she saw for the first time that he was tired, not beaten. Marcus Sterling was not a man who looked beaten, but his skin had gone the color of paper that has been in an envelope too long, and there was a very small tremor at the base of his left hand. "Thorn will use you," he said. He will empty your head of everything you know about the transition, the vendor network, the offshore flow, the staff allegiances, every last piece of it. And when he has it, he will put you somewhere he doesn't have to look at you. Your mother will go with you. You know how this works. I taught you how this works. Get to it. He nodded once. He reached into the inside pocket of the charcoal jacket and took out a small matte black USB drive and held it in the flat of his palm. Julian keeps the original digital deeds to the Thorne Family Trust on a workstation in his study. They're not in the bank. They're not with his attorney. He wants them close enough to touch. You'll have access to that room within the week. You will have opportunities. This drive clones the vault's key module when plugged into the workstation's auxiliary port. 90 seconds. He won't know you used it. And what do I get? Luminara Peaks Clinic, out of jurisdiction, out of reach. Your mother transferred under a different name, different physician of record, different funding structure. She's in a bed by Friday. You're welcome to join her or not. And the cost. 48 hours. After that, the clinic places go to someone else, and your mother's care at Ethelgard begins a gradual downgrade that is going to be very difficult to prove is related to anything I've done. By the end of the month, she will be a patient the staff forget to check on. Elena looked at the drive. Why would I trust you, Marcus? You wouldn't, but you know what I want. Thorne is going to decide what he wants from you in increments, and you won't know what the next increment is until he asks for it. That's the difference. I'm the one whose terms are written down. He held out the drive. Elena did not move. She was aware of several things simultaneously. That Marcus was telling the truth about the sequence of Julian's use of her. That Marcus was also lying somewhere in the offer, because Marcus always was. But that the lie was probably not the part about her mother. That taking the drive did not commit her to using it. That refusing the drive committed her to a version of the arrangement with Julian she had not yet had time to map the edges of. She took the drive. 48 hours, Marcus said. I heard you. He nodded and walked away, and his cane made no sound on the carpet of the corridor, and Elena stood at the window above the cliff and put the drive into the inside pocket of the black coat, and buttoned it and walked back to her mother's room and did not go in. She stood outside the door for a count of 10. Then she went down in the elevator and got in the car her driver was waiting in, and she was driven back to the Aurelian through the fog. The penthouse was not dark when she reached it. The study door was open. A band of warm light lay across the hallway floor. She had not expected that. She had expected him to be in his own rooms, or out, or asleep. She had expected, in any case, to have the corridor to herself for the 10 seconds it would take her to decide what to do with a drive. Whose presence in her pocket was the heaviest thing in the building? She stopped at the door. Julian was in the armchair. He had his jacket off and the sleeves of his shirt rolled to the forearms, and he was reading, actually reading, with a pen in his hand, marking a margin. A glass of scotch was at his elbow. He had not looked up when she arrived. He did not look up now. Come in. I was going to my rooms. Come in, Elena. She came in. She stopped a reasonable distance from the armchair. She kept the coat on. He turned a page. How's your mother? He said. Awake tonight, clearer than she's been in a week? Good. He marked another margin. He did not look at her. She had been in this room perhaps 40 seconds now, and she was aware of the specific arithmetic of his attention. He was giving her exactly the amount of it that indicated he knew she had come from somewhere before here, and none of the amount that indicated he was going to ask where. Did you see anyone in the corridor? He said. The nurses, 2 of your security men. No one else. She had not rehearsed this. She had left herself the 5-minute ride home to rehearse it, and she had spent the 5 minutes doing something else with her thinking, and now she was standing in the door of his study with the answer untested in her mouth. Marcus was there. Julian turned another page. What did he want? To recruit me. Against me? Yes. What did he offer? A private clinic for my mother, outside the jurisdiction, out of your reach. And what does he want in exchange? He didn't specify. That was the lie. It was a small, carefully shaped lie, and it sat between them for 2 full seconds, and Julian did not react to it at all. He turned another page. He made another small mark in the margin. The pen clicked against the paper. All right, he said. He set the pen down and capped it. He set the book on the arm of the chair. He stood. She had been expecting something when he stood. The crossing of the room, the hand in the hair at the nape of her neck, the specific charged proximity he had established in the elevator. And he did not cross the room. He walked to the sideboard and poured a second glass of scotch and carried it back and held it out to her at arm's length. Sit down, he said. She took the glass. She sat, because sitting was what the room required and because refusing the glass would have been an answer to a question he had not yet asked. He sat back down in the armchair. He looked at her for the first time since she had walked in. The look was not hostile, it was not gentle. It was the observational register she had been learning to recognize in him. The flat, interested look of a man who had a working hypothesis about what was in the room with him and who was in no hurry to test it. I'm not going to search you, Julian said. I'm not going to ask you to empty your pockets. I'm not going to call security and have them take the coat. I'm telling you that because I want you to know those are not options I'm exercising. The absence of them is a choice. Do you understand? I understand. Marcus will have given you a deadline. Yes. How long? 48 hours. That's generous of him. He took a slow sip of his scotch. He watched her over the rim of it. You know what I think, Elena. What? I think you haven't decided yet. She did not answer. I think you took what he gave you because refusing to take it would have committed you to something you weren't ready to commit to, and taking it preserves the option of doing nothing with it. I think you drove back here trying to work out whether you hate me enough to use it, and you didn't reach an answer in the back of a car. I think you walked into this room still carrying the question. He set the glass down. I'm going to make this simple for you, he said. I'm not going to negotiate against Marcus's offer. I'm not going to try to outbid him on your mother. Whatever I do to keep her in Ethelgard was already going to happen. It's not a term. And if I use what he gave me, then you use it. And we both find out what kind of morning I have afterwards. And if I don't, then you don't. And we go on. And you keep wondering whether I was going to. I'll stop wondering when I stop wondering. She held his gaze. She was aware that her pulse was fast again. She was aware that Julian knew her pulse was fast again, because Julian was the kind of man whose attention, once he was giving it to you, was an instrument he knew the calibration of. She was aware that somewhere in the last 3 minutes he had offered her something that was not mercy, and was not threat, and was not an arrangement, but which functioned in this room at this hour as the closest thing to trust he was structurally capable of extending. She set the glass down on the small side table beside her chair. The scotch was untouched. Good night, Julian. Good night. She stood. She walked to the door. At the door, she stopped with her back to him because there was a question she was going to ask, and she did not want to ask it to his face. Why didn't you search me?" She heard the sound of the book being picked up again, the soft click of the cap coming off the pen. "Because I wanted to see what you'd do." She did not turn around. She went out of the study and shut the door behind her and walked down the corridor to her own rooms. And the drive in her pocket was the same weight it had been when she walked in, and the weight was not the problem. The problem was that she did not yet know whether she was going to put it on her desk and look at it for the rest of the night, or drop it off the balcony into the fog, or plug it into the workstation on Thursday afternoon when Julian had a meeting with the injunction attorneys and would be out of the penthouse for 90 minutes. She closed the door of her rooms. She did not turn the light on. She stood in the dark with her hand in her pocket on the drive, and she stood there a long time,